Welcome back to today's episode. We're here to talk about Tracker, the show that premiered right after the Super Bowl, starring Justin Hartley from This Is Us. He was also in Smallville back in the day. He's been on a bunch of soap operas. We'll talk about that. But really, the first thing I want to mention is that this show seems to have a little bit of a controversy because it did a name change. Originally, it was supposed to be called The Never Game, which is because it's based off the book by Jeffrey Deaver, and that's the name of the title of the book, which is about a young woman who has gone missing in Silicon Valley when her father hires Colter Shaw, the main character of the show, played by Justin Hartley, to go find her, right?
Yep, and I've read 39% of it. That's what the book app says.
Okay, is that like 100 and some pages?
Yeah, it's about 180.
That's not the game. Okay, so there was a title change that occurred, and they took it from being the Never Game, and then it became Tracker, and people were pissed. For some reason, they thought because it's competing with Reacher, that it was pandering to that sort of audience.
So it decided to change it to one word.
But I'd like to play devil's advocate and just show how often different works are changed throughout the production cycle. Okay. Sometimes because they just want to mislead the public.
Right.
But even a recent show that we did, Death and Other Details, the one starring Mandy Patinkin, another vigilante detective series, that was originally called Career Opportunities in Murder and Mayhem. Also a cool sounding title. But I'm going to give you the names of the titles and see if you can tell me what they ended up being.
Oh, that's going to be...
I think you'll actually do okay with the starting ones because I tried to go in order of like easiest to hardest, but by the end there, I doubt you'll get some.
All right.
Okay. The first one is Happy Birthday. Now this one I'll say does involve Justin Hartley.
Okay, This Is Us.
This Is Us because originally I think they were all turning 36, and that was also one of the debated titles at the time. Okay, how about this one? This was actually... Okay, these are actually harder than I thought. Wimpy.
Wimpy?
Wimpy.
Is that like Courage the Cowardly Dog?
No, it's actually Psycho. And the reason why Alfred Hitchcock changed it produced it under the title of Wimpy is he didn't want anybody to know that the novel that had only been released a year earlier was being adapted. Because that would have given it away. So he actually didn't want people reading the source material for the book that he was about to make.
He also wouldn't allow people late into the theater because of the whole entire MacGuffin aspect of it.
But it's so crazy to think like that people wouldn't want to encourage others to like look at the media or sources that it's based upon.
Well, have
like,
you seen the trailer for it? Yeah, no, Alfred Hitchcock was very secretive about Psycho.
Yeah, this one will be easy. The Flagstones.
The Flintstones.
The Flintstones, yeah. To me, did you know it was the Flintstones? It has a T there.
Yeah.
I always thought it was the Flintstones, like with just F-L-I-N-S-T-O-N-E-S. Anyways, next one I've got, this one's kind of harder, The Babysitter Murders.
Babysitter Murders.
Horror movie. Think about what evil villain kills babysitters? It was Halloween. Okay.
Yeah.
The next one
I haven't seen Halloween.
Oh, okay. Well, then Freezer Burn. This one's actually kind of creative.
Saltburn?
No, it's Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
And they were thinking about calling it
No,
Freezer
but I think that
Burn.
was the production title, you know? American Girls.
Is that just American Girls? I feel like
that was Bring It On. Head Cheese.
Head Cheese.
Head Cheese. This one's pretty famous.
The Mousetrap?
This is definitely a horror film. Head Cheese.
Head Cheese. Eraserhead?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then just cheese.
Just cheese? Oh, no, I know this one.
Yes, you should know this one.
I know this one, but I don't remember what it was.
It's Cloverfield.
Yes, that's right.
Point is that people should not be getting mad at a show before they watch it just because of the title. So I'll give Tracker that much leeway before I jump into it. But we both watched this episode, and to me, I told you many times in this podcast that this is the year of the detective series, right?
Yes.
Rufus Coatsworth from Death and Other Details, Sam Spade, Maya Stern from Fool Me Once, Darby Hart, that was last year, but I mean, it still kind of plays a factor into what is Darby Hart's thing? The murders, the one with Clive Owen, whatever. Joe Pickett, Night Agent, Reacher, that's what Tracker's been compared to. And when we did the Reacher podcast, you compared Reacher to Mr. In-Between. So I'm wondering, do you find Justin Hartley's Colter Shaw, who is also sort of a vigilante, kind of like Mr. In-Between?
No, because I actually am in the minority of people who think that Colter Shaw is not like Jack Reacher. I think that, Colter Shaw maybe get into a fight if he would want to, but like Jack Reacher, he like beats up people in a prison bathroom, beats up like 5 people in the Alan Rickman.
Are you basing this off the TV show or the book?
Off the book.
Okay, so you're saying that the book character Colter Shaw is very similar to the TV series one.
Yes, in fact, I think that Justin Hartley is more like Colter Shaw than Clive Owen was Monsieur Spade. Like I even have a description of Colter Shaw from the book, and tell me if this reminds you of Justin Hartley. About 180 pounds, just shy of 6 feet, and broad with strappy muscle. The only thing that they didn't give him was a scar that he has on his left cheek and a big scar that he has on his neck. But I really like Justin Hartley. He is one of the very few good things about Jexy, the movie I got.
So you do remember do you remember he was in The Hunt? He was in there for an uncredited appearance right at the beginning.
For like 1 minute.
He's been in, like I said, many soap operas.
Yes.
So like there were two in particular where I think his character was like killed off several times, but they kept on bringing him back. I don't know. But yeah, I'm not into soaps, but that one sounded funny.
I really like his role in This Is Us as well, like we've mentioned, and I think that he does an excellent job here. When I heard that he was heading a show, I was excited.
Yeah, his This Is Us character sounds a lot like Joey from Friends, but like a more serious version.
Oh, because he does acting? Yeah.
Yes, but also like he's got that humor behind him. But apparently in the show it gets very dark. And I do remember when we reviewed one episode in the 5th season.
I think it was the
premiere.
Yeah.
Which was kind of funny because that also, one of their premieres was right after the Super Bowl. I think
it was 2018.
Yes, I think you might be right about that. But let's bring it back to Colter. Colter takes the case of this missing kid, and this is in Klamath Falls, Oregon. So every episode takes place at a different place, even though they were all filmed in Vancouver.
Yeah, it was very strange because the book deals with one case, and it takes place in Silicon Valley.
Yes.
And he says that he grew up in the Sierra Nevadas.
Well, he grew up, so is his backstory sort of similar? His dad, like, takes him, his brother, and his sister, and his mom out to the middle of, like, outside the grid, and then kind of teaches them Hannah style, the survival skills.
So the part where he's, like, climbing the rocks.
Free climbing.
Yes, that part is from the books. As far as anything later on, I hadn't gotten to that part
I wonder
yet.
if he taught them with ropes first, or if he was just like, you get on up there, and then you try, and if you fall, you fall.
I imagined that the dad was more kind of like the Hannah, like guardian that she had. Joel Kinnaman, yeah. But in the show, it's shown that the dad is like very villainous. Like there's a lot of menace to him.
In the show, you think? I think he's misunderstood so far in the show. We literally see a tame scene where he's kind of approaching the daughter in a aggravated way, and that's when the big brother like steps in and pushes him against the wall, and then the next scene the dad's dead.
Well, the dad pulled out a knife right as the brother stepped in the way.
Well, that was to defend himself. He's a scared guy. He's paranoid out of the dickens, but like he's not going to hurt his kids. I think the guy may be a little loony, but I don't think that he's completely off base with his paranoia. Like that's something you're going to learn along the way. Probably, just based on the way they set it up. Also, I think that the brother-brother relationship is going to improve over time. Right now, it seems like Colter is doing all he can to avoid Russell in the future, and all he does is he concentrates on saving this kid in this first episode. And how does he save the kid? Well, he's told that the kid was last seen at a fast food chain trying to go see his estranged father.
Right.
And so he goes to that fast food chain, and I would assume that the family would have told the police that the kid was missing. And the fact that the police did not check the security cameras to this burger joint already kind of surprised me.
Well, that's the way that it is in the book, but what happens next was just completely made up.
Him breaking into
yes, him
the back?
breaking, because he does go to jail in the story, but that's not the way that it's done, and it wasn't because of security cameras. He does go to this place called the Burger Bin in the book. That part was 100%
So they
real.
do pull from that.
But he asks in the book if he can see the security cameras, and they take him behind, and he's allowed to see it. He doesn't break in, and then there are two cops coincidentally there that are trying to break down the door.
This guy is supposed to be super analytical, and he's supposed to be aware of his surroundings. He's a survivalist, after all. And he doesn't clock the cops sitting right there, or doesn't even bother like waiting until they leave.
That was
do this.
I was
he would
very
have
annoyed
had
with
so
that.
much more time.
Colter Shaw was a lot smarter in the book.
There was very strange when he called the family immediately, the mom that had told him about her kid, and she got on the phone. As soon as she picked up, it was like, "Oh my God, did you find him?" Followed by him being like, "No, but I have this picture that I have to send you." And then she's like, "What?" That was her voice on the other end. It feels like they didn't splice that out and they didn't replace it with something more like, "Hey, so what's going on?" Like, I just don't understand.
What you have to understand is that it says that it's based on the Never game, but really they only took Colter Shaw's name and kind of the way that he looks, because everything about the series. I have a Justin
Hartley quote for you. It's character-wise, there are a lot of similarities. Story-wise, we have our own stories.
It is completely separate,
and it's a week-to-week week thing.
Yes, it's a case by week thing. The book is just one case that is trying to find a 19-year-old woman named Sophia, but in the show they decided to switch it to a 14-year-old boy named Gil in Oregon.
In Reacher, people are so used to it being a faithful adaptation, it being almost 100% accurate for the full, and every season follows one book. This is not the same thing. Again, it's a CBS show. You're going to get that procedural, formulaic
But
plot.
every single character aside from Colter Shaw is added. That was not in the book either.
Well, of
I'm
course,
talking
because
about
they have to invent people every single
But
episode.
have you ever seen a show that only keeps the main character, and Velma shows up for 3 pages? She has a way larger role in the television show than in the book. But her person that she's working with, Teddy, that's all made up. The person that ends up getting him out of jail, Rennie, the lawyer, that was all made up.
Oh, okay. So none of the supporting
Yes,
cast are
that's
the
what
same.
I'm telling you.
Is it? But I mean, that's just this crew of okay,
But
I've got
Bobby,
my tech guy,
Bobby
yes.
Exley, he's made up.
Okay.
Gil is made up. All these people are made up for this show.
So you have the two lesbians who are sort of playing like Bobby from Supernatural, who are kind of directing him on where his next mission is. He's getting paid a lot for this, by the way, $50,000 per case. That seems like enough to definitely bankroll him so that he could afford them if he was hiring them. But they seem like more like mother figures to him. And then you have the tech guy who's there to I guess figure out whose license plate belonged to what, or hack into security cameras.
He,
You'd
for
think
some
that
reason,
he might have been able to find out the Burger King stuff without, or wherever it was.
I don't know why, but Bobby Exley's character, again, the technical guy, reminds me a lot of the foobar person who helped out Arnold Schwarzenegger's character in that series.
Well, it's the gentleman thief. Remember, they have their team, and then you have the gentleman detective, and they have their team. And so that's just the same formula that they're using here. And so I just want to get back to the plot for a second. He gets arrested, and then he gets bailed out by his lawyer. But before all that happens, he starts professing exactly what's going on to the cops. And the cops are the most Vancouver cops that you can get, because they don't get mad at him. They don't get mad at the lawyer when the lawyer starts flagrantly flirting with her client right in front of them for a good 2-minute segment.
Well, the thing about Rennie is that she was supposed to be a smug lawyer and had something with Colter in the past.
Yes,
Again,
she calls him handsome in the first 2 seconds while trying to belittle him. And then also the cop sleeps with Colter by the end of the series. Now, I do think it would be really funny, so not series, but the episode.
Yeah, episode.
It would be funny if every place that he went, it was a new knock on his board, on his headboard, where he's just sleeping with all the people that he helps out
in the
way.
book. There is a love interest that's in it for a couple chapters named Maddie, but she is not the center point of the show, and I'm mad that it seems that they are trying to go with this love triangle thing, because most of the book is just him trying to figure out what happened to Sophia. For example,
he also took off his shirt 8 times in the show.
After he saved that person in Nevada, in Black Rock Desert, Nevada, and
that was how they showed up. They really kind of introduced his character.
Yes, and he did the percentages thing that also happens in the book. However, the beginning of the book is him trying to save someone from that's in a sinking ship.
The percentage thing is supposed to happen in his head, in his inner dialogue.
Yes.
And just like Maya Stern from Fool Me Once, all of that had to take place outside. It had to happen in conversation. And so it comes off a lot more clunky than it would a narrative in your head.
Right.
So I understand how, especially the pilotitis of that, where they're every second that we see him, he's talking about how there's an 80% chance of this happening. And it's just
he does it. Yeah, he does it throughout the episode. But the biggest thing, I think that the most Colter Shaw we get is actually when he's speaking to the family, trying to figure out about Gil, because that is almost straight from the book, where he's I'm a rewardist. The thing about Colter Shaw is he's not a PI, he's not a detective. Velma does help him. Again, Velma has a lot bigger role
Velma
in
and
the TV
Teddy,
series.
or just Velma?
Just Velma.
Yes,
Again,
okay.
Teddy was completely made up.
Cool.
But yeah, Colter Shaw, he says he's a rewardist. So once he finds the person, he gets the money. That's something that he says in the show and in the book. That was 100% real, but it seemed like almost 90% of the book just was not used, because I've read about 40% of the book, and I can already tell you that if you made a straight adaptation, almost like Rick Riordan with The Lightning Thief, you would have probably 2, possibly even 3 seasons worth of details. That's how good and how many twists the book has.
But going back to Queen Latifah, she's been able to... No, they got 20 million on that premiere.
Right.
People watching it. And this premiere was 18 million people. CBS isn't looking for high-thought worked out shows. They're looking for things in the background that can be played and that people can put themselves into the main character or really like the main character.
But then why take the Never game? Why take the Colter Shaw character, a character that I think is really cool and does his job well, and then just make it a procedural
into
series?
A bland, like simple.
Yes.
I think this might be that's the main criticism, is that it's just too simple for even the casual viewer.
It's every other CBS, Fox, NBC show, and 911, Chicago PD, SWAT, Blue Bloods, FBI.
Yes, well, I'm just going to explain. After he's bailed out of jail, he works with the police, and then they find the kid. He gets shot along the way, but then everything goes well, and then he sleeps with the police officer, and then he's off to his next chore.
Yeah.
He also avoids his brother because his brother in the past may have or may have not killed his dad.
Yes.
That's the premise. That's the full 40, 50-minute show. So yeah, it is simple. That said, I think the real reason why this show isn't as good as, say, a Reacher would be is not because of the main character, and it's not because of the surrounding staff. I think it's actually the production side of things, where if you hear... So hear me out. The showrunner is Ben H. Winters, who really his claim to fame up until now, he is an author. He has done his own detective series. He's sci-fi stuff too, but he doesn't do a lot of television. He doesn't do a lot of movies. And then you had him and this other person, Hillary Wiseman Graham, who made Social Distance, that show.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who serve as the showrunners. And then you take into account that Justin Hartley, who also helped pitch the show, he got the idea from Ken Olin. And Ken Olin directed 28 episodes of This Is Us, so he's by far and probably the most accredited director on that show. He also directed things like Eli Stone, Brothers and Sisters, and he starred in a show called 30-somethings, which this came out in the 80s. It was a group of baby boomers in their 30s living in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and how they handled their lifestyles that are dominated with American culture in the 1980s, given their involvement in the early 1970s counterculture as young adults. So it's about growing up back then. Another family drama. I think the people behind this, the ones that were really in charge of its making, have only ever concentrated their work on non-action oriented shows.
So they haven't done mystery shows.
When we talked about Reacher, we were talking about people who had worked on Prison Break beforehand, who had worked on Oz, who had worked on these shows that had definitely had a lot of action sequences and knew how to do fight scenes interspliced with the drama. This whole show felt like it was manufactured, even though the main character is supposed to be somewhat violent, to like be neutered when it comes to the violence. We got very little blood, despite the fact that in the first scene, that lady had that rock on her leg. It was like when he took that off, it looked like a little bit more than a scratch.
Just a tiny bit of bones.
And then he got shot, and we barely saw any blood from it. Like, he kept on talking about how he was bleeding out, and I kept looking at that shoulder, and I just kept not seeing
blood at all.
It looked like you were in a video game for like that's E-rated. And then also there was another scene. He just woke up at the end with the sex scene. So it felt like it was for a G audience, but at the same time wanted to be cooler.
And that's the sad thing, because in the book, there's so much action. That's part of the reason I like it. And the first scene, again, is him trying to save someone from a sinking ship. In the first chapter, we have Molotov cocktails being thrown. People get shot, people die in the book. And it seems like almost if you're going to take this book, you really do have to be faithful to it, because you're giving the viewers the wrong, I guess, what they think the book would be like.
Well, the thing that always gets me with these type of shows, even with Supernatural, is how quickly the cops work with the civilian detective. It's like the amateur sleuth comes out of nowhere, and suddenly the police are like, here's the case for you. He is able to manipulate it so that he gets 2 hours alone.
2 hours to speak to who's
go
to
try
Jack.
And find Jack, the guy who has kidnapped this kid. And for some reason, the whole premise of Jack kidnapping the kid is because he thinks that there's buried treasure that he had heard from the kid's real father, who had passed away, told him that they had buried treasure at where the kid and him had camped 9 years beforehand, but his kid's only like 14 years old.
Right.
So expecting the kid to remember the location of a place when he was 5 in this Crater Lake National Park, considering how big a national park is, it's just insane. So our main character says there is no money. Clearly the guy was delusional, the one who died, the father. Right. But my thing is, there probably was money. The kid just doesn't know where it is. He had no, like, kidnapping the kid did nothing for it. And then the kid had to be scarred because the police decided to come in early. The helicopter gets them in trouble.
Like 30 minutes early, yeah.
What doesn't make sense is why the police didn't have more dogs with them. because this is definitely a Hudson and Rex thing where you could sniff out that guy way quicker than you could try to find him in that mountain landscape. And I mean, it would have been a perfect situation for Colter to also use a dog.
The weird thing about the cops coming early is it reminded me of Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man 2. If you remember, right before Electro really turns into Electro, he's still using his powers and things, but Spider-Man is able to almost talk him down and is like, hey, just calm down, come to the station with me, like, we'll be able to get this all planned out. And then a cop ends up shooting a bullet, and then Electro basically turns evil for the rest of the film. Here it was almost the same exact thing, where Jack, he really did trust Colter Shaw, which I liked seeing because, again, Justin Hartley does an excellent job as Colter Shaw in the episode.
Justin Hartley plays it like, and he plays most of his characters where he's just a likable dude.
Yes.
Like, you would want to hang out with him. Now, he is saying it's different than Kevin was in This Is Us because Kevin is more vulnerable to other people's thoughts about him. Well, Colter is very at home in his own and actually is the person who is causing other people, like, distress. Like, he comes into people's lives and he creates chaos, sort of. And then he's
I
out
also
of there.
felt like they couldn't go too dark with it, like you were saying, because Jack, how he ends up dying is he commits suicide. So
Yes,
it's like, again,
right in
his
front of the
choice.
kid.
Right. And
So-
the blood splatters against the car.
Yeah, the kid is probably pretty traumatized at this point because right after that, he has to take a huge dive into the ocean.
Yes.
But he does survive. He makes his way back to his family, and so everything ends hunky dory. But yeah, I think overall this is a very down the middle straight show where I can't bash it too hard. Just it has a few plot holes here and there. But if you're just meant to watch it in the background, I'm just gonna give it a simple 5 out of 10.
I think it's better than The Equalizer. I like that shows. I do not like it when after a Super Bowl they always show reality shows because there's nothing to it. So I do think it's better than The Equalizer. It's even better than 24 Legacy, which was shown after the Super Bowl at one point. But comparing it to the book, and even without the book, like I said, it's just kind of standard. And because of that, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 as well.
Okay, so we'll both give it 5 out of 10.
The backstory, again, it is as abrupt as it is in the novels, but I just feel like it was done better in the book because it was more interesting to read about. Here, yes, I can understand why Colter Shaw is traumatized, but I almost don't care that much.
6.5 on IMDb, 87% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience score is much lower in the 50s. And then Variety said that overall Tracker works fine for a network drama, but it's no standout. Hollywood Reporter said none of Deaver's novels about Colter are used as source material. Now that's a bit of like you said, there were some things that did translate, like the burger joint.
When he is speaking to the family, that was probably the closest that the show got to actually adapting anything from the book.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's where we'll leave it. You do remember that we did do a show called Trackers way back when, right?
Yes, that was our 16th or something.
Like Cape Town. It had to do with rhinos and diamonds being smuggled. Yep.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.